Hey, LaRoyce, it's Zaviera from Cream Convos. How are you?
I'm fine, yeah. I can't complain tonight. Thanks for thinking about me this morning.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I'm a huge fan of Chicago PD. So when I had the opportunity to speak to you, it felt like a little bit of Christmas coming early. So,
Oh, really? That's great. I like to hear that. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, I've been a fan of yours for quite some time. And I had an opportunity to check out this episode that's coming up this week, and so many levels to it. And as always, you've done an incredible job. The episode is based around the no snitching policy that has plagued the Black community for and ever. And I just love the way that the show handled it as far as just keeping it very real in the aspect of why the no snitching, code, it's an unofficial code, I suppose, in the Black community is so still relevant to this day. Is there, can you tell me your thoughts on that and going into this episode, because it's,
Yeah.
your hometown, Chicago, and, and it
Yeah.
really hits home on screen, as well as
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah. Well, the episode definitely, in my humble opinion, is probably one of the best episodes that Chicago PD has ever done, and I'm grateful to have been that voice in an episode so powerful that did add that balance that I think you noticed. It was important naturally for the writers and for the performers also to really make sure that we did an authentic job and not just representing Chicago and the South Side of Chicago, Inglewood specifically, but also representing the culture in a way that, in a way that was honest and authentic. I don't think it's fair to call or label someone a snitch that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the situation anyway, but does not trust the police enough to comply or to cooperate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So so the snitch vibe, I guess, grew over time, and I'm not an expert about it to know like when it started or how, but I know that it has evolved into into this cliche that it's similar. It's kind of like a cliche that's similar to black on black crime, right? It's like there is, when you think about it, there is theoretically no such thing or naturally no such thing, but it's such a easy or cliche thing to say that it becomes the label for an entire culture or an entire idea or concept that probably doesn't deserve it, and that's what I feel like the snitch vibe did, and I think that this episode did a great job at throwing notes and nuances in that represented those ideas.
Would it be fair to say that this no snitching policy has kind of plagued the Black community? Because, like you said, it's the breakdown of the relationship between the community and the police department. And then also one of the things that the episode touched on that I really felt was a great and excellent point was that many of the people who are afraid to come forward, we always want justice when Lil Ray Ray get popped, right? We want justice, but then we're afraid to speak out because we aren't confident that we will be protected by the police once we come forward. And
and I think No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No, go ahead. No, it's all about you.
I was just going to say that I think I'm sorry. No, I love the episode because it shows so many different perspectives and so many different reasons why these different characters who are being asked by the police, like just and I think everybody who came in and did guest spots on this episode was amazing. I tip my hat off to everybody involved because I think that every performance was so honest. Think about the brother that was in the bar when and his brother in the bar and he had a perspective, and then there's that you almost understand from him working at that bar. But then you also have a perspective of the young mother who would probably love to answer your question, but, looks at her daughter and thinks about what those consequences might be, and so, we don't beat the audience over the head with, with an oversaturated vibe, of something like negative or cliche. The performances did a great job of showing, the authentic perspective of each individual family and each individual in that community that has to deal with those consequences and what that means for them. So, if nobody truly understands those subtle details about why the people in the community don't trust the police, or why they might be afraid for their families, or why they might consider their own consequences, if nobody gets to see those stories, then the snitch vibe will continue to somewhat plague the community or the culture in a way that it doesn't deserve. Because, like I said, those, we label it as just no one snitching, but in real life, there are consequences underneath all of those, all those layers that I think this episode does a great job of portraying.
Excellent job. And, one of the reasons why I love Chicago PD so much is because every single episode is so real that sometimes it's almost like, am I actually watching a television show? And even to the aspect of, just to piggyback off of what you said about everybody, each role, every player on the episode brought so much to the episode, even with the officer dealing with guilt. A lot of times we just,
and that's my favorite, that's my favorite storyline of this episode. If you ask me, I think, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just think it's important for me to say Patty is like a brother to me, and definitely one of the best friends on the show. And I think that he did an amazing job of telling, of giving the true authenticity of what a Chicago police officer has to deal with and has to feel and has to go home with at night in situations like these when he's just trying to do his job, I think that was one of the most honest portrayals of that perspective too. And that's what keeps it balanced, because while we find ourselves, probably thinking one way about the black culture, or there's a blue culture also that the show does a great job of, of telling the real stories of what happens behind the lenses of these cops, in order to show them in a better perspective also. It's like it's the same thing. I think both black and blue cultures suffer from the same plague, whereas you don't understand what these people go home with at night. So, but however, as a result of their actions or the decisions that they made or their fate, there's a negative blanketed connotation around what that looks like that you don't truly understand. And there are good cops, bad cops, there's robbers, thieves. I mean, we're talking about a good, bad, and ugly world, but at the end of the day, I think we tell great stories, and I've had a pleasure growing on this show.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. How is it for you, your experience playing this officer? Because I appreciate your role on this show, and I can only speak for myself, but I definitely appreciate what you bring to the show as a great actor, as a black officer in Chicago. One episode, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, where there was an unarmed black father walking with his son. Was it? Yeah, it was a little boy. Yeah. And you kind of had to talk an officer down who pulled a gun on him only because he wanted information. And I know that officers deal with frustrations, but I loved how they showed you, because you had that connection, to the community. And that's a great point that, that is often spoken about, that we need more officers who have a connection to the community, and how you kind of just stepped in and calmed that situation down. And I was like, yes, come on, Atwater, handle your business. So I love that, I love that aspect of the show. And I just really appreciate what you bring to the show. And I'm very happy to have the opportunity to tell you that. Now, on a side note, I told you I've been a fan for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew you did stand-up comedy? Talk about a contrast of playing a police officer and then hitting up the Laugh Factory. I'm like, really, LaRoyce? Like, I love that about you, and I just love how you're so complex, like Shaft, just a multifaceted brother. You know, you play a cop on television.
that means a lot.
But I love that.
Thank you so much.
How is that for you, like Jesus?
I think it's great. I mean, I think the best part of this show is that it's right here at home where I grew up. You know, I grew up in Harvey, which is like 20 minutes south of Chicago, and I didn't, you know, really. This show has afforded me the opportunity to kind of grow, as you know, to be more elaborate of the artist that I started off being. You know, which is dope, and I'm glad that I'm doing it here at home where I'm grounded. But yeah, I started doing stand up when I was in high school. I had my own band for a while. Spoken word poetry was a big part of my development as an artist, and I cultivated, you know, a lot of those different talents just like through, or gifts rather, through high school and into college, and I supported myself as a live artist. You know, just doing stand-up comedy, hosting shows, you know, like here and there, like hosting baby showers and bachelorette parties for like $250. You know, like that was, you know, that was kind of how I afforded my way, even when I graduated college, and I was understudying at the Goodman Theater, in Chicago, and in this role, I got the opportunity for this role. And and this is back when it was on Chicago Fire. And so if you don't know anything about how like they shifted the cast and they got a facelift, only myself, John Sater, and Jason Begay are the three original characters from the Chicago PD that started on fire and actually translated to Chicago PD. Yeah, and so and I'm blessed and honored to be able to say that.
Absolutely. So you the OG PD.
I'm OG.
That's fantastic. Well, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. You know I could talk to you all day, and I'm a chatty patty. So I will go ahead and wrap it up because I know there are other people who are waiting to talk to you. But it has been such a pleasure, and I'm already connected with you on social media, so I will continue to follow and support. And just thank you for just doing such an excellent job and representing us so well on this show. And, you know, just give the whole cast my love because you guys hold it down. It's a fantastic show. All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And next time I'm in Atlanta, I'll try to let you know because I usually do shows
please
down there.
do.